Hi guys, what's going on? And welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So we are back with another video on Ambiorix. I know we've sort of had, this will be the second one in as many days, but particularly with it being the Barbarian Archer weekend, and him being a new commander, I'm sort of playing him quite a lot, and I think it's something that quite a few people are interested in. So we're back with them again with another replay, this time on the tier 5 though, so we get access to the Fight from the Shade ability, which obviously gives that massive increase to range, that 20% range bonus, and puts sort of a vertical arc on all your shots. So I thought it's kind of a good replay because it kind of shows that. Apologise if there's a bit of a background fan noise, but it is blisteringly hot in my shed today, and I'm having to run an extra fan to put on my laptop to try and stop it from overheating because it's running very hot. So apologies for that, and let's hop into the replay. So, hopefully I get moving. Yeah, first things first, I immediately started moving and then noticed that there's actually a ton of archers just everywhere and very little infantry support heading that way. You know, if I head up to the centre here, I'm just going to be completely isolated. So I thought, okay, let's not do that. First things first, let's pull this way to some of these infantry, thinking of going up with these Punic mercenaries here. Up here, these tier 5s, they're pushing up. That seemed like a good target. But I caught a glimpse of this tier 4 cavalry, these brigands coming down the centre. Thought, let's try and make for a little bit of cover. A couple of shots off, don't get very accurate. I think, are they coming for me? And then I think I decided that, yeah, they probably are, really, aren't they? Fire again at the forest because I know I'm pulling back towards these units of Principes, which are pushing through to me, perfectly going to defend me from these cavalry. You think, oh god, you know, Roman infantry catches them out a bit. It means obviously as they retreat, look at the amount of damage I can get in with my arrows. These are really lightly armoured, these guys. 99 body armor, particularly vulnerable like this in the rear. You know, each shot is doing 40 to 50 damage, really good amounts of damage. And then as they try and retreat past me around the flanks, you know, I can just keep pouring in shot after shot after shot, keep the pressure up on them, try and keep that damage up, trying to keep increase the amount of damage I'm doing against them continuously. Yeah, and they retreat there. So I decided this time it might be worthwhile. I was trying to chase them, basically. I thought they might stop themselves on the edge of the cap point, in which case if I can keep them in range of my archers, I thought I might be able to get a bit more damage on them, which is what I was trying to do. But unfortunately, it just did not pan out. And as they kept retreating away, obviously playing wisely, doing the right thing. Eventually I thought, sod this, I'm just wasting my time chasing them, when there's other troops that are sort of in need of my support a bit more. So I see all these war dogs, just absolutely tons of them. 6 units of war dogs basically against this poor unit of Punic mercenaries in the middle. Interestingly, I noticed that they some friendly cavalry coming, but they were all the handlers were engaged, so of course they aren't running ambush because it's a toggle on combat, which seems silly really because that means all the dogs are vulnerable to strikes. You know, if they kept their handlers out, they could run ambush, which improves, you know, their dogs, makes their dogs immune to strikes, which would have been a really useful ability. So it seems silly not to do that. Anyway, is what I was doing now is I was coming into the combat. I activate my Fight from the Shade, which gives me obviously this massive boost to range and what we can do. It's obviously really quite good, and it seems to reduce friendly fire damage quite considerably. You know, obviously we get missile dispersion improvement, 30% increased accuracy, basically. You know, when we're firing into groups like this, we're getting 3,000, 3,000, 2,000, getting quite a lot of damage against these groups without causing too much friendly fire. So I was quite impressed with Fight from the Shades there. Obviously, eventually, I just threw in a bit of a focus fire as we lost visual. But then, obviously, because they're retreating, I move up with the rest of the infantry. And we just go back to normal shooting here. Particularly as the moving targets, I would rather have that much more flatter trajectory. Oh, some bad shots there causing a bit... Oh, too much friendly fire. That wasn't so good. But yeah, in this sort of situation where you want to get shots that are going to be landing quickly as the enemy's moving around a lot, they're not in a fixed fight, then using more direct fire without Fight from the Shade is definitely the way to do it. Again, I'm causing friendly fire. That was some pretty poor moves there. But of course, getting shots into all these dogs has racked us up quite a large number of points, so I was pretty pleased with how things were going in that sort of sense. So after that, I decided to leave the, there's a handful of war dogs running off into the forest, but they're being chased by the cavalry. Not something I'm really worried about. I don't need to waste my time doing that. So I start to push back towards the centre. I initially get some shots on these Punic mercenaries, but then think, you know, if I can kill these cavalry, once the cavalry is out of the game, that really puts me in a very strong position, because then It removes really one of the main threats to me. It means I don't have to hang around with infantry so much. Although, you know, I'm pretty exposed at the moment. I'm taking a bit of a risk being this far out. You know, as all I've got is other archers with me. Although these guys are so blobbed together, they do present quite an appealing target, I must admit, if I was a cavalry or enemy archer player. Anyway, we then come here, and I then go in again for the fight in the shades. So you see, obviously it puts that really high arc on it, which doesn't reduce friendly fire damage, but you know, it doesn't really stop it. I mean, I'm getting quite a bit more, you know, perhaps 7 or 8 times more damage on these enemy units here than I am friendly fire. You know, it reduces friendly fire. You know, in a situation like that, I wouldn't be able to fire in at all normally, but it doesn't actually stop it. I go for a crippling shot here, which is a bit unfortunate because it breaks these guys. Well, not unfortunate for me, unfortunate for them because it breaks their cavalry charge. And then, you know, being the tier 4s and such lightly armoured, it makes them kind of very vulnerable to archers. We've got friendly archer fire coming in as well, and I'm able to break my units off to get shots in. One of them routs, a second one I think gets killed, and then I'm just able to put fire in on the third. Kind of wish this guy had stopped shooting. Dare. So then we just keep pounding these guys as they run, and I think we get them all, do we? Or does one escape? No, it looks like one of their coverage just gets away. I then get caught up by these war dogs. Actually, I really was just a really poor play on my part, just completely not paying attention. I just immediately go in for my haste and a dash to try and pull away, which obviously does allow me to outrun these dogs, actually, which I was kind of surprised at. Pull into the plane. I put a quick focus fire in on the corner because I know where they're going to be, so it gets me a bit of damage. And then I pull back behind the friendly infantry because I know full well the war dogs are going to be ultimately on this plane, and we'll just target the nearest unit near them. I'm not sure if I used a crippling shot against these guys shortly. But anyway, these war dogs, I do look into the back of the pikes. These war dogs find themselves in a bad position now, really. You know, they're sat in the plane on the open, quite far away from enemy infantry, you know, trapped between pikes and all my archers. It's only going to really go one way for them. I know their dogs can be effective against pikemen, but I think they realise their time is up and they start to pull back. But the amount of damage they take in the retreat is pretty crippling, particularly to the dogs. And then, of course, they've got nowhere to go but we run right out nicely in front of me. Where, again, you know, I managed to rack up more damage. Again, lightly armoured units, you know, I don't know what they're running, so I think 105. It's not going to do them a lot into defence, and the dogs are even less on the body armour. And then notice we're pretty high on the cap front, so I think, ooh, let's get back. Start to dash back a little bit, trying to get into range of these enemy spearmen. We were capping. The war dogs, given how few units they got left, would probably have sacrificed themselves and tried to engage me or these guys to try and give our guys a chance, their enemy team a chance to cap. But they didn't. I'm able to get range. And even though these guys have got Fight in the Shade active, you know, it's just not giving them sufficient missile block chance to stop my missiles. And I only have to do a tiny amount of damage to reset the cap, which of course is what I do. You know, we've got this game in the bag then. We were sufficiently far in the lead that I was happy that we were going to win. And chasing that horse guy down. I was loving the machine gun effective arrows that just managed to hit him as he ran. I decide, you know, I've done all I can here. You know, some of our other archers still fire into this melee, but, you know, for me, I'm not going to be able to add anything to this other than friendly fire. You know, the allies have got these, and they're cutting these guys down. I don't need to be trying to throw arrows into that sort of engagement. So I leave them and move on. I do start to fire into these wolves here because Punic mercenaries are kind of outnumbered. Not to mention the fact I think I'm able to get quite a bit more damage in against on the wolves than I am on Punic mercenaries. But as it gets closer, I then cease fire because, you know, doing more is just causing unnecessarily friendly fire. So we do that, then we pull off and start to basically advance on the enemy base because, you know, things are looking pretty good now. You know, the team is well in balance for us. All our team is now basically surrounded here, and now can just march on the enemy base. Where sort of the enemy, feeling obviously that was the best thing for them to do, a handful of them stay back to defend. It's kind of a regular problem, I think, in this game, when sort of incoherent team tactics. So, you know, a handful of units have stood back to defend, which I kind of understand at times, but the problem is the bulk of the team didn't. So now they're in the situation where they're just vastly outnumbered. They're trapped in a central location. You know, they have to defend these points. We can pick and choose when and where we want to come in. This cavalry can avoid them all day. You know, we've got the archer advantage. It's really going to be hard for them to win this in any sort of meaningful way. And they're pretty much lost this from the start. Even if the matches were a bit more balanced, I think it would have still been a lost engagement. So these guys, these are Kanane spearmen, sorry, which obviously means they've not really got anything like raised shields or fight in the shade or anything available to them. So, you know, as I get shots in them, I'm able to rack up a good amount of damage, particularly if we're shooting into the back. Oof, you know, 6,500, something like that. You know, you see a lot of people, archers like these guys, just shooting in on the Romans. Well, the Romans have got testudo, what's the point? Well, not when the units like this, like these units of enemy pikes down here, which they've now got raised shields going, but they didn't at the start, and then they were facing the wrong way. It makes much more sense to sort of make sure you pick and choose your targets. Then these guys, as they put raised shields on, I noticed the enemy had another unit over here, which initially didn't have raised shields on, so switch your fire. You know, I'm selecting and targeting, and these guys are still shooting at these Romans, and I don't know if they're actually doing any damage at all, or if they are, it's extremely negligible, you know, 10 or 20 per volley, whereas I'm racking up sort of 6,000. So, you know, target selection is really important with archers. Don't just get focused in because it's the first unit in front of you. Doesn't mean it's the only one that's relevant. You know, it's one of those things you really have to try and remember. Sometimes, if there's literally nothing else to shoot, then maybe. But, you know, I noticed these guys turned off their raised shields, so it's presenting an opportunity again for me to get some shots in. You know, I'm starting to focus my fire back down on them. So these guys are still shooting these Romans, and you know, no real damage. All you're doing is giving them an absolutely ton of defense points for no real reason. Obviously, I stop my firing as those cavalry come in. I make a huge mistake here. I went for my crippling shot to give the knockback on these guys as they moved out a little bit. I forgot I got these units of pikes in front of me. I did apologise in chat, but yeah, that was pretty poor on my part. I caused a reasonable amount of friendly fire there when I shouldn't have done. But I noticed these guys put the raised shields on and turn back towards the cavalry. You know, putting their shields away from me, which gave me another opportunity to start firing on them again, which I start to do. These guys are doing a little bit better because they come around behind these Romans, just giving them shots into their, you know, to their backs rather than the shields. It's a lot more effective. I'm still getting some shots on these guys. I have got, no, they're not actually in raised shields, so I'm racking up a nice amount of damage. That's why we're getting so many hits. It hits pretty much every time, guaranteed hits. You soon rack up the amount of damage with these guys. It's impressive. And you have to consider these guys aren't even fully upgraded yet. They've still got to get the weapon upgrade, so they're going to get more damage and more range and more penetration. So they're going to get quite a bit better yet. And these are pretty much stock apart from the shield upgrade. So yeah, it's kind of how powerful these guys are. We're almost at 5,000 aggression already. It really goes to show how effective these are. I tried, because I know we've got this battle in the bag by this point. I was trying to get a flanking modifier on these Romans. I thought I might be able to get a right flank on them, which would have got them to rout. So I got stuck in trying to hand-to-hand because I wanted to go with that flank. But unfortunately, it didn't actually activate. Obviously, it's not quite working out for me. I ended up just slowly getting myself butchered by the enemy vengeance. I realised this and just pulled back. I pulled back into the open for a bit, thinking, oh, well, I'll just wait here till the battle's over. And thought, oh, of course, why don't I go into the cap circle? Because it'll give me more points. I'm not exactly on max points yet, am I? So, that was a bit of a, don't know, brain failure moment. So I quickly run back into the cap circle just to get those last handful of points. Which hopefully gives me some nice good old points. Takes our score up well above the 7,000. I think we end up with just over 8,000 once we get the final capping points. So yeah, really good. I mean, Fight from the Shades is a nice little ability. I do like the extra range it gives, and I think it does work pretty well in fights where, yeah, 8-1, that's a pretty decent game. Works pretty well in fights where the enemy troops are already engaged. It's not going to be one of those things that is useful in a situation where, you know, an enemy is running across you. If an enemy is sprinting, using dash, and changing direction, Fight from the Shade is going to be useless because the travel time of those arrows is just far too long for it to be worthwhile. And that's going to be its problem in that sort of sense. But when you're fighting against units that are engaged that can't move, you know, you're really reducing friendly fire with that ability to reduce dispersion. And that dispersion reduction, I think, gets better and better, to be honest. Yeah, you know, it gets another 10% improvement, so it's going to be 40% there. 50% there. So yeah, it's going to be a 50% improvement in accuracy, basically. Which is quite a lot by the time we get to tier 7, so yeah, quite a significant improvement. So yes, all in all, very strong commander still. Still a big fan of playing him. Not necessarily such of a fan from a game balance point of view, possibly. But I guess a little bit more time will tell how he pans out properly in the higher tiers. So thank you for watching, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please give the video a like. and subscribe to the channel. We're now, at this time of this recording, I think we are 8 subscribers away from 1,000, so we're nearly there. Keep going. And thanks guys, I shall see you all on the next video.